So let's start at the very beginning where all financial wellness presentations should start, and that is with the one that unfortunately in today's society and in our economy we seem to have gotten away from. I'll spare my comments on politics at this point and kind of our nation, but on an individual basis, we have the privilege of meeting with and talking to so many people about their retirement. And, for a lot of folks, I think as we're aware, we need to be saving a little bit more. We need to be putting a little more away for retirement. And most Americans, many Americans are behind when it comes to saving for retirement. But I'll tell you that with the people that I meet with and that our team meets with on a one-on-one basis, I would actually argue that the average American is even further behind when it comes to the amount of emergency savings we need to have to protect ourselves and to provide that foundation so that if something does happen or go wrong or break, that we've got something in place to be able to satisfy that emergency, as opposed to simply just using a credit card or maybe a line of credit on our home as our fallback. Or maybe for the younger employees that are on the webinar today, we're going to mom and dad for some of these things. This is a crucial component, and I think we all are well aware of the fact that we should have 6 months of our living expenditures set aside in a separate account that we can access in a period of a rainy day or multiple rainy days back to back to back. And again, that 6-month amount for various reasons has become a long lost art, as I mentioned. So I think we've got to get back to the basics. We've got to understand how much does that equate to. If I'm living on $3,000 a month, that means I need $18,000 in a separate account outside of my checking account. And I'm not really even worried or concerned about what kind of rate of return are you getting on that money? Where is that money exactly? What I'm most concerned about is that you have that money somewhere and it's at arm's length reach away from you, so that you can't simply just reach out and grab that money if a more minor emergency occurs. That's the other thing I would probably encourage you to think about, especially if you're married, is that you very clearly define what is an emergency for you and for your household. And again, you can make that list as long as you want it to be. The encouragement, of course, would be to make that list as short as possible. The number one emergency that comes to mind as we think about a rainy day would be if we lost our job. And that's why the number ties back to a number of months that we need to sustain ourselves in expenses. Because if we lose our job, that is the number one answer as to why and when I would tap in and use my emergency money. And again, as I said, we can go down as far as we want. We could list out if my car breaks down, if I have a major family emergency, medical emergency for me or for a relative. These could all be reasons that we tap into the emergency savings. But like I said, I would keep that list as short as possible, and I would define that list, especially if you're married, because if you're going to wait until you're in midst of an emergency or you're trying to figure out what is an emergency when that's happening and you're married, that becomes a very different conversation as opposed to if you've talked about this in advance, you've listed it out, and then you're going to execute on the game plan when, and hopefully, that doesn't occur, but we know that these things do occur. So we want to make sure we define if the washer and dryer breaks, is that an emergency? And is that kind of defined in our list? Or are we going to simply wash clothes for a couple of months by hand until we build up enough money in our monthly budgeting to then replace the washer and dryer? So those are the kind of things that, again, the devil is in the details. So we got to make sure we're thinking all these things through when it comes to this most foundational component of our financial well-being.